But WWE coming off of Crown Jewel and heading into Survivor Series, and the talk for the last couple of months, and the talk is just continuing, and that is of one Mr. Phil Brooks, CM Punk, who is a Chicago native. And, Survivor Series, one thing I want to commend WWE on when it comes to Survivor Series, and it comes to something that they don't normally do, and that is changing things up. So if you don't know, Survivor Series sold out months ago, but ticket demand has made it so that WWE didn't just say, hey, the show's sold out, end of story, but they decided to open up more seats and more seats by getting rid of the stage and getting rid of the setup, not just opening up more seats that are obstructed view, but actually altering their setup. Then it shows, obviously, we've talked about this on the podcast before, about different sets and different stage setups and different ways that they can position the ring. And it shows that they can be flexible because we're only a few weeks out and boom, they decided, hey, we're not going to do the typical Raw SmackDown set. We're going to shrink it down. They open up some more seats. When those seats sold, they shrunk it down even more. So right now, the entire Allstate Arena is going to be sold. They're going to change up the set, change up the design, sell the whole place out. It's going to be similar to what we saw for Backlash and Money in the Bank. So good on WWE for doing that because they could have done that in Montreal for Elimination Chamber last year, but instead they just sold out and then called it a day, right? This time they're actually saying, hey, we can sell more seats here. Let's look into the design. Let's actually physically change the set so we can make this a bigger event. And, I don't think they could probably do that for WrestleMania. Those sets are a little too big and in advance, but there are, like I said, some sets where you can, do some crazy things. And actually, before we get into CM Punk talk, I want to just kind of talk about Crown Jewel in the sense of the set situation. And I don't know if you at home knew this. I don't know, Brandon, if you caught this as well. But this past weekend's Crown Jewel event last weekend in Saudi Arabia was not at your traditional stadium in Saudi Arabia. It was at an arena, like a 9,000-seat arena, something that would host a Monday Night Raw. It only had like one tier of seats. You could see the ceiling. And the reason I bring up the set is because I don't know if this is just the money that Saudi Arabia is paying to have this show. But this was in an arena, folks. This was a 9,000-seat arena, like half the size of what's going to host Survivor Series. And they not just had quite the elaborate entranceway, something you don't see for Raw or SmackDown, but they had the traditional thing that you're used to seeing at like a WrestleMania over the ring, that big, huge set with like the pillars and the video boards. And it just shows you clearly, like, you don't need to be in a big-time stadium to have that setup, because here they are in a 9,000-seat arena, and yet they're having this huge thing that essentially goes all the way to the ceiling over the ring, making you think that, hey, is this in a stadium? Because this is like a stadium set. You know what I mean? It was an arena set at the end of the day, but like it shows you that, hey, they can, when we talk about can they or can they not do the things they used to do, they clearly can make whatever they want. They can clearly make Survivor Series look like it's in Soldier Field in Chicago if they wanted to, and have quite the setup, because this was in a 9,000-seat arena, a smaller arena than they just were in for Monday Night Raw in Pennsylvania, and had it set up as if, like, like I said, extra video boards and stuff that they brought in. I don't know, again, if that's just because Saudi Arabia is saying, hey, we're paying a lot of money for this. I don't want the house show set here in this place. I want it to look like Crown Jewel if we were in a stadium. So they definitely can have any setup any way they want. And without harkening back on the days, but shows you, hey, when they did WrestleMania in front of no fans, again, if they would have maybe taken a step back a second and thought of a way to do it appropriately, it shows you that they could have probably made WrestleMania look pretty darn good with a little bit of thought and some time put behind it, because, like I said, they had the same setup for like a WrestleMania, and then it took only like an eagle-eyed viewer like myself to realize, like, hey, that's the ceiling. This place ain't as big as it looks. I know, like, it looks because of the canopy over the ring, and the canopy over the ring that they only put for big stadium outdoor events. They put that indoors, so it kind of made you think they were in a stadium, but they weren't. But focusing on the topic at hand, CM Punk, right? And a lot of people thought that they were opening up more seats for Survivor Series based on the demand that CM Punk is going to return. I personally think that it was based on the fact that Survivor Series is a big-time event. It's going to be War Games probably, and now we know officially it is going to be War Games. And I guess my question going into all of this is, I know a lot of people think CM Punk is coming back, and maybe some people bought tickets based on CM Punk coming back. I think they're stupid if they did. But do we need CM Punk to come back? Does Survivor Series need CM Punk to come back? And if Survivor Series starts and goes off the air without any sighting of CM Punk, is that going to change your view on the show at all?
No, not at all. I think for me, they're already building a good card for it already with the early matches that you're seeing, with the whole Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins will be teaming up together. It's to me, it's going to be a show that it's one of my favorite shows of the year, and as you know, we've talked about this for years and years and years. It's one of my favorite shows of the year. And it's like, to me, it's like the All-Star game in a way, because you're going to get, one team, or actually, two teams, obviously, of like just, the best heels, the best faces. That's where we get our show name from, heel to the face. So you're going to get a good mix. And then, as you've seen recently, we've seen a lot of things come out of Crown Jewel. We've seen things come out of SmackDown with some turns and whatnot. So it's to me, they're building a good show. I think WWE's product has been really good, and they've been on a good stretch, not only just recently, but they've been going pretty well, pretty strong for, I feel like, a while now. So, yeah, does the CM Punk factor, kind of grease the wheels for some people to get tickets? Probably, because it's in his hometown, his home city. So, whether or not he's there is up to, to be determined, I guess. I'm not worried about it one way or the other. Like, to me, I'm going into Survivor Series not expecting CM Punk there, because it kind of reminds me of like all these big names at Royal Rumbles that you're like, oh yeah, it makes sense. Why wouldn't you bring in these, Samoa Joes or whatever, but back when Samoa Joe was like a hot name to bring back for a Royal Rumble. And to me, I don't want to be disappointed for the show because of one person not being there potentially, or to me, I'd rather just enjoy the show. I'm going to enjoy the matches as they're laid out, and then if CM Punk is there and he shows up, I will organically enjoy it. Like, we were talking off air about things, and I don't like the fact that, and I've learned to stay off of social media during certain stretches of wrestling shows, because I feel like things are getting ruined. It's not even rumor mills. It's more like you're seeing these facts out there, like, scripts, and things like that people are leaking. And it's like, well, there goes that. So for me, I'm just going to go into the show thinking CM Punk is not a part of WWE. Enjoy it. And then if he's there, cool. We'll have a good time with it. To me, WWE does not need CM Punk. CM Punk needs WWE. With everything that happened at AEW, CM Punk needs WWE way more than WWE needs him. So it's more so if they can come to an agreement where WWE is really happy about it, then they'll do it. It's not CM Punk demanding what he wants like he pretty much did with AEW, because at that point he was a hot commodity in the wrestling world and entertainment world as a whole. So he's lost that luster given what's happened in AEW. I feel like, at this point, I'm not saying he's going to grovel, because CM Punk's not the type that's going to grovel and beg for a job, because he's pretty well off from my understanding. So it's not like he needs to work. But I do think he has that wrestling fix that he got a taste of it when he was in AEW for that run. And then now that he's not there and he's like, oh, he's had it for a little bit now, and he felt good. He wants to scratch that itch. I don't see Impact as even a factor because of the money. And you talked about it. We've talked about it. There's not enough money that Impact could give him. I don't think CM Punk's going to command a good salary. So he
doesn't need the money. I feel like the one place I'll give CM Punk some credit is that I feel like wherever he's going to go, because this is what he liked, this is his principles, his bread and butter that he kind of lives and dies by, is that he doesn't need wrestling. He doesn't need any of this. He's going to do what he wants to do. So essentially, Impact, I don't necessarily think they would need to give him a huge salary if he wanted to go to Impact.
I don't think he goes, though. To me, like, I don't think they want to put a huge amount of money.
I don't think he goes either. But
yeah, the money is part of it for me. But to me, like, Impact has a good thing going. Like, we've talked about it. Like, they have their niche. I don't think CM Punk will the return on the investment for CM Punk potentially there. I don't think will make them a positive gain. So for me, I think it's one of those situations where if he goes anywhere, it's probably WWE. I don't see him going to Japan. I would be very surprised at that. Obviously, with the AEW New Japan relationship that we all know about. Plus, I don't think he wants to wrestle in Japan. I just not full time, not regularly. He likes, as we know, he's a big hockey guy, and he likes to go to hockey games. Last time I checked, they don't play the NHL in Japan. So, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, not yet. I mean, look at the NFL; they're going to Germany and whatnot. But my point is, I don't think he goes to New Japan. I think if he's going to be in wrestling in any facet, it is WWE. And in the wrestling world, they've been comparing this to Ultimate Warrior. We're like, oh, there's no way Ultimate Warrior comes back given the circumstances, and then he came back. I'm not saying he's never coming back. I just don't know if he's coming back, this time around. I think it's almost too obvious where it's like, well, maybe we should wait. Like for me, if I'm WWE and like maybe you already made a deal with CM Punk, I get you want to get that cool bump in Chicago, but people have already they're kind of expecting it, but they're not expecting it. Like some of us are like, okay, if he's there, cool. If he's not, cool too. It's like the gimmicks kind of run its course. Like AEW did it. Okay, AEW's in Chicago. Oh, I guess CM Punk's probably going to return, make his debut back in wrestling again. Why would WWE want to copy what AEW is doing? That's kind of my thought on it. If I was WWE, you want to know where you debut him? You debut him at Royal Rumble if he comes.
And here's the thing, and I'm going to say this. I used to be a huge CM Punk fan. Don't want to say that I'm not anymore, but I used to be a huge CM Punk fan. But frankly, I don't think Survivor Series doesn't need CM Punk. WWE, as you said, doesn't need CM Punk. CM Punk needs WWE. But I'm at a point, too, that it's not just he's not needed, but it's also if his music hit, I would probably have the same reaction as if Goldberg's music hit. And that is no real reaction. I mean, it would be interesting per se if he does return, just physically seeing him, physically seeing the Survivor Series and all of it together. I get that, but I'm as interested in seeing him as I am in Goldberg, and I'm interested in seeing him as I am in seeing Ric Flair wrestle again. Like, it's a point where if CM Punk really never wrestled again, I would be just as satisfied as if he did wrestle again. I just think that, there's just when he came back in AEW, that was like the return. I was interested in that. He left. We were all wondering what happened. It was, everything going on in the years that he was gone. He came back. He went into wrestling again after turning his back on wrestling, saying he doesn't need wrestling. And then when he left AEW, I think that was like, that spoke enough. It's really like a relationship. Hey, when you have that first breakup, you know what I mean, and it shocks you and you're stunned and you've been together for 10, 20 years and you're going, whoa, this is crazy. And then, you kind of get used to being without them, but you still always have that wonder, what if, like, what happened? I don't understand. And then they do come back, and then you have like an attempt at another relationship, and it's just, it has its good moments, it has bad moments, but this time when you break up, this time you're like, now we're good. Now there is not that what if anymore. I'm not curious about CM Punk coming back anymore. He came back, he did it. Now wrestling and CM Punk essentially have broken up again, and this time there's like no feelings.
I'll take your analogy and I'll take it a step further. So like in the breakup scenario, like at this point, like, I mean, you kind of equated it to the entire wrestling business. I'm going to simplify it and say WWE. So WWE and CM Punk had a very bad breakup. So maybe, the time has passed and, it's like, it's almost like ships passing at the night and then you like happen to bump into each other again and you're like, and then it's like, why don't we, let's have a conversation, and like the conversation turns into something else and, turns into a good thing. And then you let it run its course. And then and I'm not trying to put CM Punk I'm not trying to say bad things about CM Punk. But what I feel like will happen is if this were to happen, the WWE and CM Punk get back together, and things are good for a bit, and then in typical CM Punk fashion, it just goes to hell, and that's That's what I think would happen.
The real reason why I'm really not interested in CM Punk coming to WWE is I would have probably been more interested as if he came into AEW, had a good run, and then kind of stepped aside himself. But him coming to WWE essentially on the terms that he's coming to now, like analogy of a regular relationship breakup, right? You're with somebody, you have a great relationship, but then something happens stunningly in the middle of the night, they leave, you break up, they go and they're dating someone else. You have a breakup, you don't hear from them again, but then you hear about them dating someone else. And then they break up with someone else in a bad fashion and then try coming back to you. So it's that idea of like, no, at first, I was curious, like if WWE was the first choice and he came back, that's different. But now under these circumstances of him kind of like coming back, turning his back on WWE for greener pastures and going to UFC and that not working out, then going to AEW. It really, to me, if I was WWE and like for those reasons alone, I would not really be interested in CM Punk. I understand never say never with anybody. They take everybody back. If it's good for business, I get it. But it's just he not just left and then spoke bad about you, but then he went to these other places where he essentially failed. And you would be taking him back. Like I said, he needs WWE more than WWE needs him. Last I remember, WWE does what's in the best interest of WWE. So if WWE doesn't need Stone Cold Steve Austin, they weren't having Stone Cold Steve Austin. They're not a charity organization over here, right? So like from that perspective, like if they don't need CM Punk, if anything, if they just look weak, if they take CM Punk back in the sense of like you're gonna let this guy go join all these other places, get knocked around from these other places, and then come crawling back to you, and you're gonna take him. Like it makes WWE look weak in that sense.
It does. And here I'll let me add this to the equation. And I know we're talking CM Punk here, but like from a fan perspective, I'm more interested in the return of Randy Orton than I am CM Punk.
Yeah, Survivor Series. Now, I don't say Survivor Series needs Randy Orton, but we're talking about. So one of the War Games matches is already made for Survivor Series. Right now, it's 4-on-4. Some rumors are wondering if it's going to be 5-on-5, and if Drew McIntyre, as we saw this past week on Monday Night Raw, still has some animosity towards Seth Rollins. He lost at Crown Jewel and didn't retain the belt. He came up to Monday Night Raw and did a weird thing where he drove away. And for those in attendance like myself, we were deprived of a Drew McIntyre appearance other than on the screen of him showing up to Raw, then driving away from Raw because Seth Rollins is there. But why else would Seth Rollins not be there? That's kind of a weird storyline thing. Like, hey, Seth Rollins is here. Well, of course he's here. Y'all work for Monday Night Raw. Like, and then he just drives away. But if Seth Rollins or Drew McIntyre does join the heel team, if you will, that would obviously make an opening for maybe Randy Orton to join the face team. And I think that would be more interesting, even though that would probably be more predictable. Randy Orton obviously is coming back to WWE at some point, while CM Punk is not a current employee of WWE. So while we already know about Randy Orton, I still would find more enjoyment in Randy Orton because, again, the last time he left, it's not anywhere near the same ballpark as CM Punk, right? He went away for different reasons. He went away for a short period of time. So the CM Punk thing is just, personally, like I said, as somebody who was a big fan of CM Punk in the past, I'm personally fine with WWE bringing him back just like they did the Ultimate Warrior, like you mentioned here, the Ultimate Warrior, bringing him back just like the Ultimate Warrior for the Hall of Fame and the Hall of Fame only. I don't need him to come back for a run.
I mean, I don't know. I'm on the fence with it. I mean, I'm not the biggest CM Punk guy on the planet. Like, I know you've always been more of a fan of CM Punk than I have. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I got excited when he came back to wrestling in AEW. Like, obviously that was a cool moment. But for me, like, and he was gone from wrestling for years. It was a long time for me.
It'll be 10 years and 10 years since he's been at WWE as of this upcoming Royal Rumble.
Yeah, and like speaking of time away, like Randy Orton's been gone a fraction of that. He's been gone a year and a half, not even 2 years. But for me, as a wrestling fan, as long as I've been a wrestling fan, like I've been pretty much guaranteed the last 20 years that I'm going to get Randy Orton. Like Randy Orton's been a staple in WWE for as long as I can remember. So him being out as long as he has, and knowing that eventually he's going to come back. And, like, I just want to see some RKOs again. Like, that to me, like, the possibility of him coming back at Survivor Series, as you pointed out, as maybe the fifth member of we call it the face team, that features Seth Rollins among others. So we'll see. I mean, I'm at the end of the day, you know me. Survivor Series is one of my favorite shows of the year. So that's one of the shows that I definitely will watch live no matter what. So I'm really looking forward to the show.
Survivor Series has war games for both men and women, right? Which you're only getting one time a year. It's one of the big time shows. It's in Chicago. It's worthy of being a arena sellout. And now that they have the whole arena for sale, they can probably sell, they're probably going to get 16,000 people. Last year, Survivor Series got 15,000 people with no CM Punk in Boston, right? And they're probably going to get 16,000. And at the end of the day, I think Survivor Series should get 16,000. It's like saying, well, will WrestleMania sell more tickets based on CM Punk? No, it's WrestleMania. That's all you need to know. The Royal Rumble's Royal Rumble. That's all you need to know. So at the end of the day, anybody who says, oh, look, they're opening up more tickets because there's more demand because CM Punk, I don't buy it, because last year there was tons of demand for Survivor Series without CM Punk. It's because it's Survivor Series. It's literally like saying, oh, I noticed that Royal Rumble's selling more tickets. Is it based on CM Punk? Like, no, it's based on it's the Royal Rumble. And frankly, if Survivor Series was seeing a surge in ticket demand and it was 100% attributed to the rumors of CM Punk, then that says very bad things to WWE about Survivor Series. Because frankly, when Survivor Series tickets went on sale and when it was talked about, it was an event that perked up my ears and been like, hey, I want to go to that event just like I went last year and stuff like that, because it is a big time event. If one of your big four pay-per-views, one of your longest running pay-per-views, your pillars of the calendar, is having a hard time selling tickets, if you don't have a rumor involved of somebody, then that's a problem. So I think, like I said, at the end of the day, people talking about, there's all the extra ticket sales and they're in Chicago and all this other stuff. I said, listen, it's selling because it's Survivor Series and because it's War Games. And if CM Punk doesn't show up, it wouldn't have made a difference on me personally going or not going. If I ended up going, or, right now, I really doubt I'm going to be going. It's in Chicago, but hey, you never know. It's a free weekend for me, maybe. So it's not too far away. It's only, a 1 hour flight. But at the end of the day, if I ended up going, it will be 100% not based anything on.
Wait, is Chicago only that's only an hour flight?
Like an hour and a half, maybe.
Yeah, that's not. I never done it, so that's when you said that I was like, oh, that's really not that bad. You're not taking your whole day and just going in the air, so that's kind of cool.
No, I mean, Chicago, from where we're located here in Syracuse, Chicago is most of the times a stop for me on the way to. So it's always like Syracuse to Chicago to LA, Syracuse, Chicago to Las Vegas, Syracuse, Chicago to Texas, Syracuse, so it's always that in Detroit. And like, if I'm going down south, it's Washington, D.C. is like the stopover. If I'm going out west at all, it's Chicago. I think when I went to Minneapolis, it was Syracuse, Chicago, Minneapolis. So yeah, it's like an hour and a half flight. Nice. And it ends up being, obviously with the time difference, with it going back an hour, ends up being like, if you left at 7:00 in the morning, you'd get to Chicago at like 7:45 Chicago time or something. So
it's not that bad. Yeah, it's not bad at all. No, I was just curious because when you said that, I'm like, and again, to preface it for our listeners and our viewers here, it's, I've never been to Chicago, so I know you're way more well traveled than I am. So I'll give you. That kind of caught me by surprise. I just didn't realize that Chicago is really a short flight, relatively speaking.
It's a long drive. Yes, it's about a 10-hour drive. But hey, there is actually, I was talking with somebody I know from Chicago. We were talking about going maybe next summer to Chicago, and maybe I'll beat him to it and go at the end of the month of Survivor Series. But from Syracuse, you can take an overnight train, which is like about 10 hours, but you can sleep on the train. And it like leaves Syracuse at like 10 p.m., pulls into Chicago at like 8 a.m. You sleep on the train, you wake up, boom, you're in downtown Chicago. I guess the only issue, obviously the biggest issue when it comes to Survivor Series and doing any of that stuff is the fact that the Allstate Arena is not located in Chicago. It's located in Rosemont, which kind of takes away from that ability to do it like you do New York City or another city where you go to downtown and then you can just walk to where you need to go. It'd be great if the United Center, right? It could get dropped off in downtown Chicago and then take a walk over to the United Center. But unfortunately, Rosemont Horizon's like 35 miles outside of Chicago. So that's another transportation thing in itself. But I don't think Survivor Series needs CM Punk. And we'll see, obviously, talk more Survivor Series as we get closer to that event.